In the beginning, man created hardware. And like that, life experiences were born. A CD, DVD, video game, or album could be yours after purchase. You could use it for as many hours over as many years as you please. It would only run out when the life of the hardware had entirely run its course. Until it bottoms out, total organ failure. In Marc Andreessen's famous 2011 article, Why Software is Eating the World, he discusses the future of tech in terms of his theory.
Future digitization is businesses using tech as seen in the world's largest bookseller.
Hearing Amazon be referred to as a bookseller back in 2011 was a bit shocking. And I think definitely based on what modern audiences know Amazon to be today, we can see exactly how his theory reigns true. They were a bookseller, but they focused on software and the Kindle so much so that they're basically purely an online general store now. In doing this, they hoped that media would be almost zombified by digitization, taken from its literal physical body and put into an online body where it could live forever. But the issue with that is that these pieces of media don't survive on the internet forever. Eventually they become lost media. When you post something online at the scale the internet is now, it becomes buried so fast, and with search engines having almost a fake level of results because of having to prioritize and keep so much data, a lot of the things that have been put online in the past, including games, just don't exist online anymore. Unfortunately, this video isn't about preserving software or lost media online, but it's worth the note simply because it's just another factor of what happened during this transition. Just like how Amazon changed from selling physical books to focusing on the software of their online store and the Kindle, we saw how this transition continued in other areas as well, and very quickly a business model you might be familiar with was soon crowned the most effective. Subscription services. For consumers, they're launched as a convenient, low-commitment, low-cost, flexible option that you can back in and out of with ease. Yet, time and time again, we see this concept fall apart in practice, as subscriptions create an almost monopoly over a piece of media, and then they gatekeep it behind their subscription. The consumer is ultimately forced to purchase a multitude of subscriptions, sometimes to only benefit from one feature or product within them. As such, they're paying to access products they don't want, and it becomes more costly than just buying the rights to the products universally and individually, as seen in the past through rental services or as single-time use hardware copies like a DVD. This kind of thing isn't appealing from a customer's perspective. You're not going to want to buy hundreds and hundreds of subscriptions and every single battle pass and every Uber One upgrade and every premium for your music streaming service. It's too much. And as much as a subscription or live service game will generate a consistent revenue stream for a company, it's not going to work if the consumer isn't compelled to pay for it. So what happens when customers aren't willing to pay for the service that the company provides? In Chris Stokel's article written January this year, he coined the term subscription fatigue as a way to describe the sensation of customer behavior changing as they become overwhelmed financially by the sheer number of subscriptions a single person must hold in order to access numerous forms of media, be that Game Pass or films and TV on a streaming service. This has led a significant amount of what would priorly be customers to indulge in pirating activities, ultimately losing money for companies employing a subscription service business model and putting a strain on the paychecks of people who work in these industries. The same people who have no control over how their hard work is decidedly distributed and monetized by publishers, execs, or producers. In light of these challenges, it falls upon consumers and industry stakeholders to advocate for a more equitable and sustainable entertainment ecosystem. This means preventing piracy and putting in place regulatory measures that should be implemented to address anti-competitive practices such as homogenization of media brands or monopolies. When media is packaged together like this, it takes away the independent artist's control over a piece of media as they're forced to conform to whatever the decisions are of the company that they belong under. This not only affects the creators of media, but also the audiences, as studios and companies opt against the more diverse, risky options in terms of media to protect general audience profits, especially for countries that use censorships for certain topics that make up a large sum of our population. It leaves us with less diverse stories and less room for creativity to flourish. Young budding creators will have their new ideas refused in favor of the safe option, and less exciting new things will be coming out for audiences to get involved with. Naturally, this also works against a classic subscription service model, ultimately stabbing themselves in the back. They need a constant output of content which already puts strain on the people who work there, so having new people with new ideas opt into companies is incredibly valuable, but companies aren't willing to risk that because they don't want to push people away from their streaming service. That, or because streaming services are homogenizing, such as Hulu and Disney Plus combining into one, we're no longer needing that diverse pull for audiences, and instead a more monopoly situation is being born, in that if audiences want to reach any of that content, they're forced to buy the streaming service anyway, meaning the streaming service has full control over everything that they output, and they can fit whatever narrative that they deem is acceptable for them. In the wrong hands, you could see exactly how that kind of situation could have a detrimental effect on audiences and media and art in general. Subscription services are not a void issue, they're in direct correlation with other industry areas that are lacking. Whilst on a surface level it may come across as a consumer-focused issue due to its relation to subscription fatigue and pricing inequalities, it's ultimately a catalyst for a number of the other themes offered to us throughout this unit. Despite not being the most impactful issue on its own, it does act as a root cause for other concerns within the industry like layoffs, diversity, disability access, accessibility for new creators, preservation of media, homogenization, and monopolies. In order to protect people working in games and those affected by lack of accessibility or diversity in games art and design, companies should see encouragement from audiences to move away from subscription services. Despite the consistent revenue stream they provide, the model has become tired, overused, and overtaken by large conglomerates. Equally, audiences should encourage each other to show respect for diverse stories and express their desire to see art created by artists and not dictated by those in charge of distribution. Tools like Steam, whilst taking up a large amount of distribution, do not gate their hub behind a paywall, unlike the Game Pass, allowing creators and gamers alike to access any number of free-to-play, experimental, or official AAA games. It creates a great amount of opportunity for independent games developers to find audiences for their games and grow the industry. Equally, there is no sunk cost for Steam distribution in terms of experimentation, since almost anyone can have their game uploaded to the Steam library and then anyone with the app is able to access it. There's no real risk in experimenting, as there's always going to be people willing to try out different kinds of games, or people looking for games made specifically for certain people, like disabilities or just a niche interest.